we understand that we can achieve moksha, liberation, through knowledge. But what about karma? What about bhakti? And what about that aspect of surrendering to God? What role does that play?
Yes. Swami Vivekananda talked about the 4 yogas. It's just his classification. It's a masterly classification of various paths of spiritual practice. So any number of yogas are there. The Bhagavad Gita talks about each chapter as a yoga. So 18 chapters, 18 yogas. Now, what Swami Vivekananda did was, all these various paths, he classified them under 4 heads. And so that somehow it's caught on now. It's popular now, the 4 yogas. So there is the path of knowledge, the Jnana Yoga, which I often talk about. But there is the path of meditation, which is Raja Yoga. The path of devotion, surrender to God, faith, devotion, surrender. And there's the path of action, of selfless engagement with the world, Karma Yoga. Now, what are the roles of these yogas? It depends on what paradigm of spiritual life you're taking up. All these paradigms are true. But for example, if you take up the Advaita Vedanta paradigm, in that case, it's Jnana Yoga which is the top. Because the paradigm is, all our problems are due to ignorance. Our real nature is already perfect. Nothing has to be done. In fact, nothing can be done. There, it's you're choicelessly Satchidananda, you are free. Only you don't know it. If you don't know it, the solution is to know it. And therefore, it follows, what Americans would call a no-brainer. It follows that Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, is the way which will lead to freedom. The path of knowledge, you practice that, you get knowledge, knowledge overcomes ignorance, and your ever-free nature is revealed to you. That is freedom according to Jnana Yoga. Now you ask, what about the others? What would a Jnana Yogi, what would Shankara and his followers say about meditation, about service, about devotion? They would say they are all very, very useful. They will not give you enlightenment and freedom immediately, but one cannot have enlightenment and freedom without them. So, in another way you can put it, they are necessary, but they are not sufficient. Enlightenment comes from knowledge. If you get knowledge by whatsoever means possible, you are enlightened. However, to get this knowledge, one needs preparation. And devotion, service, meditation, all are very powerful preparatory practices according to Advaita Vedanta. But if you change your paradigm, if you go to Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, another school of Vedanta, which is a primarily devotional school, where they will say, ultimately our problem is that our karma, we cannot free ourselves from our karma without the special grace of God. God is the ultimate reality of which we are a small part. Your knowledge can only take you so far. Ultimately, one has to have devotion to that God, which is the whole of this, of all of reality. And by the grace of God, we are freed from the bondage of karma. So they privilege Bhakti Yoga above the others. And they will say knowledge is useful and meditation is useful. And especially karma, in their case, will be more ritualistic karma. Actual, what you might call puja part, the rituals which we perform in temples and shrines. So depending on your paradigm, you will see one or the other of the yogas are raised in hierarchy, and the others are always, in Sanatana Dharma, all the yogas are there. In Sanatana Dharma, in Hinduism, generally a spiritual practitioner would be devotional, would be have some component of study of Shastras and inquiry into Shastras, would have some component of meditation and some component of action. It might be ritualistic action, might be just pujas and fire sacrifices or something like that, but action. Swami Vivekananda, what he said was, his addition to this was, any one of these can lead you to enlightenment. And he said, by any one of them, by more than one of them, one of those 4, or by all of them, be free. That is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details.